Snyder does deserve some credit, and that's mainly for the diverse casting. 2024 critics, everybody! Rebel Moon Part 2, a movie that disappears even further into its own black hole. Of course, even in this, Zack Snyder isn't original, as the Marvels did it first. And Rebel Moon is the perfect example of why sometimes critics can be useful. For instance, if their embargo is the release date, it's probably not a good sign for the movie, coming in at just 13%, which is lower than the first one. And this is particularly rich when you find out that Zack has said this in an interview.
You may love or hate my movies. Vote against me is a vote for the focus group version. By saying, Snyder sucks. Yeah. You're also saying, give me some more focus groups.
Of course, this is Zack, not the brightest.
There used to be a thing called DVDs. I want Happy Meals.
That's probably why I also have an interview with him from 2 days ago, where he said this.
Role does feedback from your audience play in shaping your creative decisions. There's 3 sort of ways we do it. A trusted group.
A vote against me is a vote for Happy Meals. It's a vote for focus groups. Oh yeah, I do focus groups, don't I? Yeah. Only with my friends, though, isn't it, really? That's the first one I do.
A trusted group, where I would bring in, like, a bunch of my friends who I like their opinion and I trust their taste.
Trusted taste. They agree with me. And then he says they go further out from there. They do family and friends of the cast. Then they do random people in the street. There is one group of people he doesn't ask, though.
The sort of online feedback, I don't really look at that.
Yeah. Too toxic.
If you actually start to look at the internet for opinion about your work, you can really go down a rabbit hole, and that's a dark place.
Have you tried listening to them, Zack? You might make better movies. Because as I filmed this, I watched an hour of it, and then I fell asleep. But that hour and that huge page of notes, which I don't normally make, but this is so horrific, it deserves it, means that I'll be doing a full review later on about the movie. But this is not my time. This is the time for the 13%, as I love nothing more when the critics are actually honest.
I love that you never make any effort at all.
Because this is the kind of film where people will go, the franchise is still awful. I mean, it's better than the first installment, but that doesn't mean much. And I'm not even sure it's better than the first one. I didn't fall asleep in the first one. One thing I will say is I enjoyed the 1v1 at the end. That was cool. It is the only moment of the movie that I enjoyed, though. Even the fight scenes had me going, yeah, but where were you before? For most of it. We've set up this complex trap. How come no one was guarding the door? Don't go into this movie expecting anything to make sense. This isn't a turn your brain off, it'll be fine kind of movie. This is a lose your grip on reality, you're going to need it. Slow motion scenes and spotter story pacing, check. It has a story? The story is, we need to defend this town. That's it. Poorly developed characters, check. There is exactly one scene where they give backstories. In the first movie, they lined up and had someone lore dump their own stories at them. In this movie, they line up and lore dump their stories at you. For a creator that says this about themselves,
I'm a writer. I've written half of the movies that I've directed.
Have you considered not doing? Plot holes bigger than the Milky Way? Check. If you're talking about plot holes, I'm not sure if this is a movie or Swiss cheese. This movie's holier than the Catholic Church.
I'm not gonna say, like, you don't like my movie? What's the matter with you?
You know you're in trouble when IGN don't like it. Half-baked conclusion to a well-trodden story with flimsy character studies and lackluster action. I thought Zack Snyder could at least do action pieces right. Yeah, had a bit too much faith there. How can somebody mess up lightsabers and lasers? It turns out there is a way. Multiple ways, actually. Half an hour of this movie is slow-mo capturing grain. I wish I was joking. IGN gave it a 4. We can't recommend you waste your time on it. These are people that gave She-Hulk an 8. They gave the Marvels an 8.
Black Girl Magic!
In fact, one of the only 4s they gave was to Gollum. Rebel Moon is as bad as Gollum. But I mean, don't worry, the early reviews were amazing. The Scargiver is better than part 1. Snyder is more concerned about character than world building and keeps everything contained and focused. Yes, there's so much character building in this movie. It happens in 2 scenes. One where she randomly starts talking about her past, and another one where everybody just randomly talks about their past because they're gathered around a table and told to. Definitely more concerned about character than world building, but only because there's so little world building as well, or anything else, really, unless you like harvesting grain. If you do, this is the movie for you. There's probably more farming in this than there was in Clarkson's Farm. In fact, one of the strangest reviews actually comes from Empire magazine, where they go, it's marginally better than part 1, but still a weird, messy, and humorless sci-fi. And it's like, who went to Rebel Moon expecting a comedy? Has your brain been destroyed by too many Marvel movies that you think everything must have jokes in, even though they're never funny? Oh, we're gonna make a joke about everything, even though we don't know what a joke is. Look, Empire, if you think it would improve your enjoyment of the film, just periodically play a laugh track at random moments. What they do in most American comedies anyway. I'm sure you'll feel right at home. Have a feeling that's the kind of reviewer that really enjoyed The Big Bang Theory. And maybe the reason why Zack refuses to listen to the internet is simply because it tells him things he doesn't want to hear. In that Rebel Moon Part 2 is the lowest rated Zack Snyder movie on Rotten Tomatoes to date. In fact, one of the few people that gave it a positive review is The Guardian. It's a bombastically fun sequel. The issue is, it comes from The Guardian, and they love communism. All I'm saying is they're not renowned for having the best of taste. No, Rebel Moon Part 2 The Scargiver, which is a horrible name, is more boggle-eyed claptrap from Snyder's Star Wars ripoff. My favourite thing is they gave it a 2 out of 5, The Guardian gave it a 3 out of 5, but just look at the quality of title. There's something charming about its sincerity. It's boggle-eyed claptrap. What a difference a star makes. This space opera never makes you care who wins or loses. That's not true. I really wanted her to lose. No, this is a movie that learned nothing from the first one. Probably because he didn't listen to any of the people that were telling him all the problems with the first one.
The sort of online feedback, I don't really look at that. That's a dark place.
This is Zack Snyder's insufferable shtick of a Star Wars ripoff. Maybe that's why Twitter was calling it The Scargiver Strikes Back. It has lots of style but zero substance. Concludes with a bland bang and a 2002 pixelated smoke CGI explosion. Like, seriously, your blurry lenses won't save you from that. And when I say blur, I mean seriously, blur. This goes beyond I think I need glasses to I think I'm having a stroke. That's why I'm sort of confused when people come out with titles like this. Zack Snyder goes big on story that rings hollow. This movie barely had a story. Some of these reviews, when they're trying to compliment it, there's so little to actually compliment that they kind of just have to make stuff up to say was good. And you wonder if you've been watching the same movie. At least with most critics' reviews, you're like, okay, you like that, I didn't like that same bit. But it at least existed what you're talking about. It's too long and too repetitive. Maybe they're talking about the harvesting scenes. But don't worry, it had thrilling action. But perhaps the best part was the great character work throughout in its 2 scenes. You know how in some reviews there's a little box that said, I received this product for free? I just think under critics' reviews it should be, yes, I was under the influence of various different substances at the time.
She's beautiful and thoughtful. Shine wherever you go. I used to stick to your gut, to yourself.
I'm glad you like it.
In other words, easily pleased. While I've been filming this, we've gone from 23 reviews to 32 reviews and stayed at the same score. 47% audience rating. Even that's down from the first one. Devoid of any sense of place. Doesn't do anything to justify its existence or its predecessor. Never mind a franchise. Oh, I forgot that bit. Not only does Zack seem to enjoy his, Japanese tentacle movies, shall we say, one where the actor said he really went for it and hopes he doesn't become too much of a meme. To be honest, mate, you probably would, normally. But luckily, no one's going to remember this movie in 2 weeks, so I think you're going to be fine. A successful meme requires you actually have some kind of long-term cultural impact. Black Girl Magic! Although I am desperately trying to keep that one alive myself. But no, the big news is that Zack wants there to be at least 6 Rebel Moon movies. Apparently, Part 1 quickly became a hit, despite the reviews. At least if you use Zack's numbers of $1.6 billion, because he basically made up a load of audience numbers. And just in case you're wondering, no, this doesn't include the 6-hour cut of every movie that he's going to be doing as a director's cut, which isn't set in the same timeline or universe, because it's set in a parallel dimension where everyone's a degenerate cretin, which explains that scene.
It's very stiff, and I mean, you can barely bend your legs.
Where really my main question is, who was the first person to find out that was pleasurable, and what did they think they were doing at the time? In spite of every dire aspect of this movie, it's still stronger than the first movie. Rotten. It's like, yeah, this is trash. Not as bad as that trash we had before, though, was it? We are really reaching here for the compliments, folks. While an improvement on the first one, the scenes don't make up for the emotional void at the heart of the movie, marked fresh. I kind of feel like some of these people have messed up their scores. Just as bad, if not worse. No real story development. But I thought that was the strongest part. What? Scargiver is without a doubt better than its predecessor, more focused, cohesive, character-driven. The bad news is that it's slower, unbalanced, and emotionally vapid. I just want this guy to sit me down and explain to me how something can be more focused and slower, cohesive but unbalanced, character-driven but emotionally vapid. Maybe it's just me, but I get the feeling he doesn't know what he's saying. He's the kind of person that I'd put on a dating site. I want a man who's strong and aggressive, but also emotionally vulnerable. He's got to be masculine and stoic, but willing to listen to me whine about my daily problems all the time. He's got to be 6'9", but not make me feel short. He's got to be great with money, so he can give it all to me.
You bring one more peasant into my penthouse, Chet, I will throw her off the balcony myself.
This is a noise machine for Snyder to indulge his love of visual excess. Do you mean blur? There was lots of blur. And film grain. Tedious, derivative, and implausible. If nothing else, it's a remarkable feat that it makes the first film look good by comparison. Banal. Confirms that Snyder exhaustion is a real thing. And just like with superheroes, no, it's just because they're ass. Nobody eats so much steak that they go, oh, I wish this tasted of lettuce just once. That this installment opens with a 90-second recap of the previous movie feels like Zack Snyder is just adding insult to injury. To be fair, it doesn't even take 90 seconds to sum up the first movie. They came for our corn, we got a load of people, and then tried to kill the guy that came after the corn. I don't care what anyone says, I like The Empire Strikes Back, and the Ewoks are amazing. Oh, it's stupid, they're taking on machines with wooden lock. Yes, it is stupid. That's why I like it. A fun end. Fans will be better served waiting for the Who wants 6 hours of this movie? I fell asleep after 90 minutes of this one. Rebel Moon came out 4 months ago, but trying to call its plot to mind this week felt like dimly remembering a glimpsed fish and chip shop. There was a village of space Vikings, wasn't there? An oiled up Conan the Barbarian? No, that's probably when you fell asleep halfway through and just wished it existed. Had Rebel Moon Part 1 not been so fantastically empty and tedious, it's possible that Part 2 might have been good. Not unless they changed the pissing movie, mate.
So, it's not acceptable behavior. It is embarrassing.
But nothing here or in the previous installment will make you give the slightest fig who wins. In place of storytelling, it's built on unwieldy lore dumps. 2 of them. Hundreds of details, no reason to care. It's just a shame it turned out to be boggle-eyed claptrap. Endless, super slow-mo sequences of harvesting via wooden scythes. There's literally a point where they go, how long will it take to harvest? They go, half a year. He goes, I need it done in 3 days. And not often just think, maybe we should get a tractor then. Get a combine harvester out the back. They even have people carrying around lights for them, rather than sticking them in the ground so they can harvest as well, the lazy gits. Snyder loves grain the same way that George Lucas loved taxes. Is it because Snyder wears too many hats as a writer, producer, director, and cinematographer that this film suffers from inept storytelling? Or is it just because he writes them, considering the writing bit is the bit you do before, so it doesn't actually matter that you are all the rest? After all, remember,
I've written half of the movies that I've directed.
Is that why more than half of your movies suck?
I'm not gonna say like, you don't like my movie? What's the matter with you? Vote against me is a vote for the focus group version.
No, it's a vote for making movies that please online opinion. You know, that thing that you don't care about.
The sort of online feedback, I don't really look at that.
Otherwise known as the audience. What will it take to get some semblance of story from him? He's the pissing writer. How about talent? That'd be a good start, wouldn't it? The headache-inducing journey, that'll be the camera lens. Seriously, there is one person in the world with a weird astigmatism who has absolutely no idea what we're talking about right now. He's the only person that saw the movie looking normal. Everybody else walked away from this movie with the room spinning. Their brain adjusted to the blur and wasn't used to the real world again. Part 2 begins with exposition from Jimmy, who they call James. I still don't know who James is, to be honest. I've been given somebody else's memories. I don't remember any of this. Whose memories are we talking about? If that was in Part 1, could have really put it in the intro, couldn't you? The bargain basement guardians of the galaxy. Cora reports that Admiral Atticus is dead, but little does she know, somehow, he's returned. Cora reveals the part that she played in the assassination of the king and Issa. Yes, that would be where she went along with it perfectly voluntarily and only got pissed off when she got held accountable for her own actions. We're supposed to think she's the victim in this scenario, rather than a willing accomplice who then got blamed for the murder that she did do. Look, Zack seems to have the same morality as the rest of Hollywood. So at least in this regard, the morality of the movie isn't surprising. It's one of the reasons I really supported the villain. What comes next is 70 minutes of slog. That might explain why I fell asleep at the 90-minute mark. Slow motion farming, and remember the farming is supposed to be done at speed, so they've got 3 days to do 6 months of work. I'd say the irony wasn't lost on Zack Snyder, but it definitely was. More exposition on the history of these heroes that the narrative doesn't care about, and scenes that try to convince the viewer that these peasants months can prepare for a war against a military in 5 days. There's even one moment where they go and get a ship and go, "This is the key to our victory." I'm like, so why did you leave it till the last 2 days then? You don't even know if it pissing works. They also then drag it along for a while, only for them to go, hang on, it still flies. So why were we dragging it then? Some scenes looked cool and is filled with action, especially the final battle. I did like that. As a story, it was more enjoyable when nothing was explained and the audience didn't know anything about anybody. I kind of think you don't know anything about anybody now. In fact, Mauler had the best description of all their backstories. You see, I was in a nice place, but then mean people came and did mean things, and now I'm here defending grain. I don't think that getting backstories are bad. It's just when they're terribly written that they're a problem.
I've written half of the movies that I've directed.
So what did we expect?
You can really go down a rabbit hole, and that's a dark place.
Maybe we'll learn for next time. What's more noticeable here than the previous film is that makeup and hair are giving a little extra attention to detail. Weren't these filmed at the same time? Everything looks like it's caked and glued on, almost as if the budget had run low. In fact, the entirety of this movie reads like the budget ran low and everything halfway comprehensible was put in the first part because that's where the money is based on, visuals alone. Holy crap, Deadline. I suppose if the idea is to make 6-hour director's cuts of both movies, he did have a lot of footage to pick and choose from. And when I say a lot of footage, I mean a lot of wasted footage that shouldn't have been filmed to choose from. Snyder does deserve some credit, and that's mainly for the diverse casting. 2024 critics, everybody. They hate literally everything and then go, well, you know, it does appeal to my bigotry. I'm failing to realize how the foundation of what he's built was not applied to... It was. We know what his foundation is. Slow motion and lenses which are broken. Everyone involved deserves better, including the director. The director's the one that made the pissing thing. He's basically the only one that got what he deserved.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to have with my brother.
Cut. Thank you.
Frivolous scenes, the worst possible dialogue, horridly underdeveloped characters. No, they can't be true. The character work was the best bit about it. As the film drags on, all the goodwill generated by the first hour, now there is a guy who enjoys slow motion harvesting, is replaced by some of the most peak Zack Snyder. Look, getting your name turned into a verb is one thing, but when it's derogatory, that's an entirely different one. Oh no, you've been Snydered. One wonders whether a director who keeps releasing bad movies, while insisting perfection is just a few more cuts away, might have a few more fundamentals to work on than he thinks. A talent for inciting social media mobs can only get you so far. Wait, are those the mobs that he refuses to listen to?
The sort of online feedback, I don't really look at that. That's a dark place.
I listen to my friends, just not the only people that control whether I get paid. I do like Travis, though, from Punch Drunk Critics. He says it's an easy to follow, straightforward tale. The bar was set very low. Fresh. I've got low standards and you hit them. As a guy that knows what he likes, knows it's not difficult to give it to him. Even post-coital conversations in Snyder's films consist of exposition about battles, betrayals, and backstories. He forgot the main B in his alliteration there. Boredom. A 6-movie franchise? That sounds exhausting. With Scargiver, Snyder has crossed over into self-parody. Now, I said in my part 1 review that maybe this one would fix all the mistakes, you know? They could realize that they had no characters in the first movie, and so give us the backstory in this one. I wasn't expecting it to be shoved into one scene badly. In fact, I'm surprised that people are saying this movie is better than the first. I entirely disagree. If I had to watch another one, again, right now, it'd be the first one. Yes, it was entirely unrelated scenes, but it was still less boring than this one. I liked exactly one scene, the final battle in it. That was indeed cool. But I can't help wondering that people have known that Zack isn't exactly, talented for a while. It's like, yeah, I really pitched Leonardo DiCaprio about Lex Luthor. He came in, he had a lot of great ideas. He was really smart about the material, really smart about the character. And then in the end, he was just like, I don't know, though. Kind of seen your back catalogue and I've listened to your work and how you talk about the story. And, yeah, you're probably going to kill my career if I do this. Because when it comes to the Scargiver Strikes Back, I am definitely on the side of the critics in this one. If he gets more movies out of this series, I will be amazed. But it is Netflix, so you never know. This movie is so bad, it really is it needs to be seen to be believed kind of movie. Because just describing slow motion harvesting scenes, it doesn't give you the full impact, as they keep returning to it repeatedly for like an hour. And so that's why I'll be doing a full review in the coming days. But for now, that's it from me. If you like the video, press like, subscribe, more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.